ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरून् श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगुणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Okay, so we are here at Shloka number 43, chapter 9 of second canto. So let's continue reading. Tushtam nishamya pitaram lokanam prapitamaham devarshir paripapracha bhavanyan manuprachati. The great sage Narada also inquired in detail from his father Brahma, the great grandfather of all the universe, after seeing him well satisfied. Purport. The process of understanding spiritual or transcendental knowledge from the realized person is not exactly like asking an ordinary question from the schoolmaster. The schoolmaster in the modern days are paid agents for giving some information, but the spiritual master is not a paid agent, nor can he impart instructions without being authorized. In Bhagavad Gita 4:34, the process of understanding transcendental knowledge is directed as follows. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninastattvadarshinaha. Arjuna was advised to receive transcendental knowledge from realized person by surrender, question and service. Receiving transcendental knowledge is not like exchanging dollars. Such knowledge has to be received by service to the spiritual master. As Brahmaji received knowledge directly from the Lord by satisfying him fully, similarly, one has to receive transcendental knowledge from the spiritual master by satisfying him. The spiritual master's satisfaction is the means of assimilating transcendental knowledge. One cannot understand transcendental knowledge simply by becoming a grammarian. The Vedas declare, Yasya deve parabhaktir yata deve tata guru tashyate katita hi artha prakashante mahatmanaha. Only unto one who has unflinching devotion to the Lord and to the spiritual master does the transcendental knowledge becomes automatically revealed. Such relationship between the disciple and the spiritual master is eternal. One who is now the disciple is the next spiritual master. And one cannot be a bona fide and authorized spiritual master unless one has been strictly obedient to his spiritual master. Brahmaji, as a disciple of the Supreme Lord, received the real knowledge and imparted it to his dear disciple Narada. And similarly, Narada, as spiritual master, handed over this knowledge to Vyasa and so on. Therefore, the so-called formal spiritual master and disciple are not uh, facsimiles of Brahma. So this is a new word here. Facsimile means an exact copy, especially of written or printed material. Okay, so therefore, the so-called formal spiritual master and disciple are not facsimile of Brahma and Narada or Narada and Vyasa. The relation between Brahma and Narada is reality, while the so-called formality in the relation between the uh, mm, The relationship between the Brahma and Narada is reality, while the so-called formality is the relation between the cheater and the cheated. It is clearly mentioned here that Narada is not only well-behaved, meek and obedient, but also self-controlled. One who is not self-controlled, specifically in sex life, cannot become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. One must have disciplinary training in controlling speaking, anger, the tongue, the mind, the belly, and the genitals. So here, this Prabhupada is taking it from the Upadeshamrita, Vacho Veham, Manasa Krodha Veham, Jiva Veham, Udaropasta Veham, Etan Vehanyo Visaheta Dira, Sarvam Apimam Prativim Shishyad. So in that way, like these are all some of the aspects that discipline is required for spiritual progress. And a person must have control of his sex life, control of his speaking, control of his anger, control of his tongue, control of his mind, belly, and genitals. So these are some of the very important aspects to control for a person to become a disciple, and also to be a spiritual master. So basically, like the spiritual master is well versed in spiritual subjects, and the disciple is very eager to learn and progress in spiritual subjects. So that is when like the real connection that happens. So otherwise, no, the real connection doesn't happen properly. And here also we saw that the process of receiving the spiritual knowledge means to satisfy one's spiritual master. And by the satisfaction of the spiritual master, we get the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. It cannot be acquired by some by some means of extraction, or by some means of forcible extraction of knowledge. So that is not possible. Or even our own strength and our own capacity of understanding and things like that, they will also fail in terms of spiritual understanding. So it is very important aspect is to render service and please the spiritual master. So that is when one can actually understand the spiritual knowledge. So without becoming a Goswami, okay, this is one who has controlled the particular senses mentioned above is called a Goswami. Without becoming a Goswami, one can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. The so-called spiritual master without sense control is certainly the cheater, and the disciple of such a so-called spiritual master is the cheated. So this is why it is mentioned like this, because a spiritual master definitely must not be indulging in material things too much. So that is definitely there. He must be regulated in these things. And why the disciple is expected to be regulated also? Because the disciple is eager to progress spiritually. So he should be regulating the material urges. Now, if he is not regulating the material urges, so then how is he going to make any spiritual advancement? So he cannot say that anyway, no, I am just come to learn. So no, why should I be regulated in this way? So like formal initiation or formal acceptance of spiritual master and discipleship means that they are willing to regulate all their material activities. No, if they're indiscriminate in their material activities, then there is no point of being a spiritual master or a disciple. So neither of the things will have any meaning over there. So one should not think of Brahmaji as a dead great grandfather as we have experienced on this planet. He is the oldest great grandfather and he is still living. And Narada is also living. The age of inhabitants of the Brahma Loka planet is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. The inhabitants of this small planet Earth can hardly calculate even the duration of one day of Brahma. So forget about calculating the one lifetime of Brahma. So it's very, very long. Text 44. Tasmaidam bhagavatam puranam dashalakshanam proktam bhagavata praha pritaha putraya bhutakrit. So this is like this Bhagavatam has been spoken, Puranam Dashalakshanam. So there is 10 subject matters that are there in Srimad Bhagavatam. So that will also come very soon. We will see that. Okay. Thereupon, the supplementary Vedic literature Srimad Bhagavatam, which was described by the personality of Godhead and which contains 10 characteristics, was told with satisfaction by the father Brahma to his son Narada. Purport. Although the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken in 4 verses, it had 10 characteristics which will be explained in the next chapter. In the 4 verses, it is first said the Lord existed before the creation. And thus the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam includes the Vedanta aphorism, Janmadhyasya. Janmadhyasya is the beginning. Yet the four verses in which it is said that the Lord is the root of everything that be, beginning from the creation up to the supreme abode of the Lord, naturally explains the 10 characteristics. One should not misunderstand by wrong interpretation that the Lord spoke only four verses and that therefore all the rest of the 17,994 verses are useless. So amongst 18,000, so it's like kind of 994, 96, something like that. These 10 characteristics, as will be explained in the next chapter, require so many verses just to explain them properly. Brahmaji had also advised Narada previously that he should expand the idea he had heard from Brahmaji. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed this to Srila Rupa Goswami in a nutshell, but the disciple Rupa Goswami expanded this very elaborately, and the same subject was further expanded by Jiva Goswami and even further by Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti. We are just trying to follow in the footsteps of all these authorities. So Srimad Bhagavatam is not like ordinary fiction or mundane literature. It is unlimited in strength, and however one may expand it according to one's own ability. Srimad Bhagavatam still cannot be finished by such expansion. Srimad Bhagavatam, being the sound representation of the Lord, is simultaneously explained in 4 verses and in 4 billion verses all the same, inasmuch as the Lord is smaller than the atom and bigger than the unlimited sky. Such is the potency of Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? So it is expansion is mentioned here, but then not anyone and everyone can do some expansion of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam must be like these great liberated souls, no, they can actually give more insights and understanding and things like that. It is just like this. Now, if we have a particular object or a particular place we are in, and then we are calling over to a friend and explaining that no, I'm there in so and so place, and then no, we can explain about the place. Oh, here nice scenery is there, nice mountains are there, nice waterfalls is there, and stuffs like that. But then no, the person on the other side, he has not seen the picture, so he can get some idea from what you are saying, right? So in the same way, the great acharyas, no, all of them are explaining about the Supreme Lord, and every person, no, in the sadhaka stage, no, he is reading these great literatures which are left back by the liberated souls, and they were no having personal darshan of the Lord, and they are writing the personal aspects of the Lord and the devotional service and things like that, because they are in the realized stage. And now the sadhakas, when they read that, so they get an insight. Oh, this is how my Lord is, this is how the spiritual world is, this is how the process of devotion is. So they get an idea. And then now when a person becomes liberated and he gets first hand experience of Krishna consciousness, then he also can write books. No, he also can write the literatures. It also can be compared. No, it also can be put on par with the Vedic literatures, right? So that's the this one. So it is not that for anyone and everyone to expand Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is not this one. So it is only for the liberated souls, because they see no tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadechanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. So these people are called the spiritual master or the great acharyas. They are called tattvadarshis. Tattva means here the Supreme Lord. It means no, they have directly seen the truth, and they can actually reveal the truth to the disciple, right? So they can actually expand, and not the sadhakas. No, sadhakas are not allowed to do this task. Okay, text 45. Naradaha praha munaye sarasvatyas tape nripa dhyayathe brahma paramam vyasayat mita tejase. Translation: in succession, O great king, the great sage Narada instructed Srimad Bhagavatam and to the unlimitedly powerful Vyasadeva, who meditated in devotional service upon Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, on the bank of river Saraswati. Purport: in the 5th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada instructed the great sage Vyasadeva as follows. So this is, we all have studied this chapter, the fifth chapter of the first canto. That's a very nice chapter. which explains about the despondency of Vyasadeva after writing all the Vedic literatures. And then he's feeling that something is missing. I have not explained everything. No, something is missing. So then Narada comes and says, yeah, you have not sufficiently glorified the Supreme Lord in all of the Vedic literatures. Now you write Srimad Bhagavatam, which will exclusively glorify the Supreme Lord. And Vyasadeva is very kind enough to put this instruction also in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto. So this is the instruction that Narada gives to Vyasadeva. So it's it. Ato Mahabhaga Bhavan Amogadruk Suchishrava Satyarato Drutavrata Urukramashyakila Bandha Muktaye Samadhina Nu Smara Smaratad Vicheshtitam. Okay. O greatly fortunate, pious philosopher, your name and fame are universal, and you are fixed in the absolute truth with spotless character and infallible vision. I ask you to meditate upon the activities of the personality of Godhead, whose activities are unparalleled. Right? So this is how Narada is instructing Vyasadeva. No, you are already a very famous person, and no, you are already a very capable person. You can actually meditate on the Supreme Lord's pastimes. So please meditate upon them and explain them. No, those activities are unparalleled. Urukrama, right? So Lord has a name Urukrama. So that is also mentioned here. Urukrama Shakila Bandha Muktaye. So Lord's activities are unparalleled. So such activities must be described, and that literature will go on to be called as Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's how the Srimad Bhagavatam has come into existence. So in the disciplic succession of Brahma Sampradaya, the practice of yoga meditation is not neglected, but because the devotees are bhakti yogis, they do not undertake the trouble to meditate upon the impersonal Brahman as indicated here. They meditate on Brahma Paramam, or Supreme Brahman. Brahman realization begins with the impersonal effulgence, but by further progress of such meditation, manifestation of Super Soul, Paramatma realization takes place, and progressing further, realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is fixed. We all know from the first canto, Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabdyate. So like Bhagavan, or the personal feature of the Lord, is the highest form of spiritual realization. So all these Narad Muni and Vyasadeva and all of them, we may see that they are sitting down in meditation and things like that. So, but Dhyana Yoga is not the process for us in the Kali Yuga. Somebody may say, okay, fine. No, Kali Yuga, okay. And also Bhakti Yoga doesn't necessarily needs this Dhyana Yoga elements in it. So, but it doesn't matter. Externally, they may be doing some dhyana and things like that, but they are all bhakti yogis because they are fully dependent on the Supreme Lord, and their object of meditation is Supreme Lord, right? So then they become completely bhakti yogis, right? So Sri Narad Muni, as the spiritual master of Vyasadeva, knew very well the position of Vyasadeva, and thus he certified the qualities of Vyasadeva as fixed in absolute truth with great woe, etc. Narada advised meditation upon the transcendental activities of the Lord. Impersonal Brahman has no activities, but the personality of Godhead has many activities, and all such activities are transcendental, without any tinge of material quality. If the activities of the Supreme Brahman were material activities, then Narada would not have advised Vyasadeva to meditate upon them. And the Param Brahma is Lord Sri Krishna, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. So why is Prabhupada bringing in this point that if Supreme Lord's activity or Param Brahman's activity is like material, then Narada would have not advised Vyasa to write about them. So why? Because the Mayavadis speak that the Lord, when he appears, he takes a material body and he functions on the material realm. So if it is an action in the material realm, then it is not worth speaking about. So it's as good as any other material activity. Then what's the point in speaking about some material activity? So here, that is why this clarification is given. The Supreme Lord, when he comes, his activities are divyam, janma karma cha me divyam, evam yo vetti tatvatah. So it is very important to understand that Lord's activities are not like our activities. They are functioning, or they are happening on a different plane altogether, right? So, and the Brahma Paramam or Param Brahma is Lord Krishna, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Param Brahma Param Dhamma Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adidevam Ajam Vibhum. Right? So in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna realized the factual position of Lord Krishna, he addressed Lord Krishna in the following words. Okay, Prabhupada is also quoting the same sloka. Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adidevam Ajam Vibhum, Ahastvam Rashayas Sarve Devarashid Naradas Tata, Asito Devalo Vyasa, Swayam Chaiva Bravishi Me. Arjuna summarized the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita by his realization of Lord Sri Krishna, thus said, my dear personality of Godhead, you are the supreme absolute truth, Param Brahma, the supreme absolute truth, the original person. And then, so, where I left. Supreme, the original person in the eternal form of bliss and knowledge. And this is confirmed by Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasadev. And above all, your personal self has also confirmed it. Right? So this is how Arjuna acknowledges the aspect that no, Krishna is the Supreme Lord and Param Brahma. When Vyasadeva fixed his mind in meditation, he did it in Bhakti Yoga trance and actually saw this person with Maya, the illusory energy, in contraposition. So that is Mayam Cha Yad Apashrayam. So it comes like that. So that means he is able to see in his meditation the Supreme Lord, and he's able to see the Maya or the material illusory energy. And Mayam Cha Yad Apashrayam, that means the material illusory energy was taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. Apashrayam. No, it was not that material energy is as powerful as the Lord. He's seeing them simultaneously on equal footing. No, it is not like that. The Lord was there, and under his complete subjugation and control, the material energy was there. Right? So that's the vision of Vyasadeva, that is mentioned over there. Then, so as we have discussed before, Lord's Maya or illusion is also a representation. Because Maya has no existence without the Lord. Right? So Maya means, in another sense, it is energy. Energy doesn't have an existence without its source. So the Supreme Lord is a source of this energy. And it's like Vyasadeva in his meditation, he sees both the Supreme Lord and his energy, Maya, who's in complete control of the Lord. Darkness, okay, so we'll continue reading. Darkness is not independent of light. Without light, no one can experience the contraposition of darkness. However, this Maya or illusion cannot overcome the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but stands apart from him, apashrayam. So we were discussing this word. This is exactly the word that is used in the first canto when, in the description of Vyasadeva's meditation, and in the Vyasadeva's meditation and his darshan of the Supreme Lord. So he actually sees Maya as apashrayam. So it is taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, perfection of meditation is realization of the personality of Godhead along with his transcendental activities. Meditation on impersonal Brahman is troublesome business. Prabhupada is also quoting that. So, it's troublesome business for the meditator, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 12.5. Kleshodikatarastesham avyakta ashakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkam dehavabdiravapyate. Right? So that's how the impersonal meditation is full of misery. And the personal meditation on the personal form of the Lord and activities of the Lord is so blissful. It's a process of immense bliss. So that is why it is mentioned. This world, many times people ask that this world, so many problems are there and so many miseries are there and things like that. So basically, even in the beginners in Krishna consciousness, they also keep asking these kind of questions. So the key aspect is, if we know how to relish the holy name of the Lord, if we know how to put our focus on the pastimes of the Lord and leelas of the Lord and things like that, so then that's it. We will not be disturbed by anything material. Nothing of this world can even move us. So we will become so solid and so internally absorbed. So we will not be disturbed by anything external, right? So that's how this thing is so amazing. Only thing that we need to get started in this is just we have to get at least a little bit of taste of this thing, and we will get that by associating with a person who has that kind of a taste. So if we have, if we get the opportunity to associate with someone who's actually relishing the holy name, who's actually relishing the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, so then we will also get a share or a little bit of a taste of that particular thing. And then we have to go back and then cultivate this habit of very nicely hearing the holy name of the Lord, very nicely absorbedly hearing the messages of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So this is very, very important. And once we set in a culture of relishing the Srimad Bhagavatam, just for relishing means not for my own sense gratification. Relishing means the whole experience is of I want to render service to Krishna. Now, when I'm chanting, the sound vibration that is coming, every sound vibration that is coming, we can actually meditate. This is a service that I'm offering to the Supreme Lord. Now, this sound vibration that is coming, it's going to offer pleasure to Supreme Lord. And every time I read or hear this sound vibration that is entering my ears, it is going to give pleasure to Supreme Lord. Now, he will be so very happy that I'm hearing about him, right? So that is the way where we start doing service, and we should not allow anything else come in this way. We should just exclusively be focused on that, and we will relish a separate different kind of a taste that will just make us completely peaceful and oblivious of any pains or pleasures that is coming through this material world, right? So we need to increase this quotient of absorption in our practice of Krishna consciousness, right? So that's where the key is. So we can just allow this message or this sound vibration to just pass on, not getting affected, not allowing it to affect our heart, or we can actually bring that thing very, very seriously and praying to the Lord and wanting to attain the lotus feet of the Lord. And in that kind of an intense mood, if we can actually chant and hear, so it will be really very powerful. That's the essence of that's the essence of human life, I would say. That's the perfection of our existence. We can actually relish this process of Krishna consciousness. Okay, so text 46. Yad utaham tavaya prishto vairajat purushad idam yatha tad upakyaste prashnan anyamscha kritsnasaha. Okay. O King, your questions as to how the universe became manifest from the gigantic form of the personality of Godhead, as well as other questions, I shall answer in detail by explanation of the 4 verses already mentioned. So now Shukadeva Goswami is mentioning that all the answers for your questions have been answered in these 4 shlokas. But then now I'll try to elaborate them, and you will understand that. You will understand the answers for all your questions in detail, right? So purport. As stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, this great transcendental literature is the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic knowledge. And therefore, all questions that can be humanly possible regarding the universal affairs, beginning from its creation, are all answered in Srimad Bhagavatam. So now we see the Bhagavad Gita explains the whole philosophy in nutshell, but it is just philosophy. It is just the pointers. And Srimad Bhagavatam elaborates on each and every pointer of Bhagavad Gita into great detail, and with a lot of stories and a lot of real-time events and things like that. So it becomes so very easy to absorb the concepts of Bhagavad Gita by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So now let's see. Ripened fruit of the Vedic knowledge, and therefore all questions humanly possible regarding the universal affairs, beginning from its creation, are all answered in Srimad Bhagavatam. The answers depend only on the qualification of the person who explains them. The 10 divisions of Srimad Bhagavatam, as explained by the great speaker Srila Shukadeva Goswami, are the limitation of all questions, and intelligent persons will derive all intellectual benefits from them by proper utilization. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 2nd canto, 9th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. So this is the sum total of all the answer. And then this 10 subject matters, it's like we have discussed it many times. Atra Sharga, Visargasya, Sthanam Poshanam Utaya, Manvantare Shanukata, Nirodha Muktirashraya. So these are all different 10 divisions that are there. So I think that should be the first shloka in the next, this one. Chapter 10, Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Yeah, so we'll see this thing. Text 1 of 10th chapter. Shri Shuka Uvacha Atra Sargo Visargascha Sthanam Poshanamutaya Manvantareshanukatha Nirodho Muktirashraya. It's very nice to see the word to word of this. No, Atra Sarga means like the primary creation. So Sarga, the statement of creation of the universe. Okay, and then Visarga is statement of sub-creation, the secondary creation that is done by Lord Brahma. Atra Sarga Visargascha Sthanam, the planetary systems, no, different residential quarters, or we can say like the lokas, different planetary systems that are there. Poshanam is the protection, so that is offered. And then Utaya is the creative impetus. After all this creation, no, what is the impetus for people to work? No, that also needs to be created. So Utaya, then Manvantara. Manvantara is changes of Manu. There are 14 Manus in a day of Brahma. And each Manu period, like there is a whole lot of the Devatas, the 33 crore Devatas, they actually officiate their position for a duration of one Manvantara. No, one Manu rules almost 72 cycles of Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali. So that much is the length of the Devatas lifespan. No, all the 33 crore Devatas, they actually officiate their positions for so long. Right? So Manvantara, and then Ishanukata. So Ishanukata is the signs of God, and then Nirodha is going back home, back to Godhead. Mukti is liberation, and Ashraya, the Samam Bonam. Somebody may ask, like, no, all these three looks to be same, Nirodha, Mukti, and Ashraya. So no, actually, Nirodha means going back home, back to Godhead. That means entering into Vaikuntha Loka. Mukti, liberation, means just getting out of this material world. No, impersonalist also may get Mukti, but getting an entrance into the spiritual world is not everyone's, this one, everyone's destination. And then Ashraya, Ashraya is the Supreme Lord Krishna, right? So like there are so many different, even Narayana forms or Vishnu forms. So, but then they are not the source of everything. No, they also have their Ashraya in the Supreme Lord Krishna, because he is the source of all the emanations and all the expansions, and he is the ultimate Ashraya. He is the ultimate, ultimate entity that everything else actually takes Ashraya off. No, everything else, every other creation, be it the material nature, be it the living entities, and be it the Narayana forms and Vishnu forms, the expansions of the Supreme Lord. For everything, the Ashraya is the Supreme Lord Krishna, right? So in this way, like we can see that everything is, all the different subject matters are covered, and it is mentioned, any question that is humanly possible, is completely fitting within the explanation of all these 10 subject matters. We cannot ask any question apart from these 10 subject matters. So any question can be answered by explaining these 10 subject matters. So that's how all encompassing, these subject matters are, right? So let's see the translation and purport. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 10 divisions of statements regarding the following: the creation of the universe, sub-creation, planetary systems, protection by the Lord, the creative impetus, the change of Manus, the signs of God, returning home, back to Godhead, liberation, and the Samam Bonam. Okay, text 2. Dasamasya Vishuddhyartham Navanam Iva Lakshanam Varnyathi Mahatmanah Shrutenathena Chanjasa. To isolate the transcendence of the Samam Bonam, the symptoms of the rest are described sometimes by Vedic influence, sometimes by direct explanation, and sometimes by summary explanations given by great sages. So the Samam Bonam, that 10th chapter, Ashraya, or 10th subject, that Ashraya, that is exclusively described in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Okay, text 3. Bhuta Mathendriya Dhyam Janma Sarga Udahrita Brahmano Guna Vaishamyad Visarga Purushas Smrita. Okay, the elementary creation of 16 items of matter, namely the 5 elements, that is fire, water, land, air, and sky, sound, form, taste, smell, touch, and the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and mind is known as sarga, whereas the subsequent resultant interaction of the modes of material nature is called Visarga. So it's basically the creation of the Panchabhuta, the creation of Karmendriyas, Jnanendriyas, and Tanmatras. All of them is considered to be the this one. What is that? Sarga, and then combination of these things. Production of the different bodies of the living entities and all the other various resultant interactions of these this ones are called the Visarga, secondary creation, right? So purport. In order to explain the 10 divisional symptoms of Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 7 continuous verses. The first of these under reference pertains to 16 elementary manifestation of earth, water, etc. with material ego composed of material intelligence and mind. The subsequent creation is a result of reactions of the above mentioned 16 energies for the first of the first Purusha, the Mahavishnu incarnation of Govinda. The later explained by, as later explained by Brahma in his treatise Brahma Samhita 547 as follows: Yat Karanarnava Jale Bhajatim Sma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupa Adara Shaktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So this is explaining about Yat Karanarnava Jale, Bhajatim Sma Yoga Nidra. So like the Karanarnava Jala, so we know that. So the Karanarnava, or Arnava means ocean. So Karana ocean. So that is the Vishnu who takes shelter of, or who lies down in the Karana ocean is called Karana Udaka Shai Vishnu. And he is also called this Mahavishnu, or the first of the Purusha avatars. So whenever we call Purusha avatar or Purusha, we should immediately understand it is talking about this Karana Udaka Vishnu, Garbhadakashai Vishnu, and Shiradakashai Vishnu. And all 3 of them, in one way or other, they are Paramatma of different realms. Shirodakashai Vishnu is the Paramatma of all the living entities, and Garbhadakashai Vishnu is the Paramatma of one universe, and Karanodakashai Vishnu is the Paramatma of entire material creation. Right? So this first Purusha, he creates the first ingredients, that is this 16 in number. Right? So that is created, and then that is called Sarga. And then further creation, what happens is called Visarga. The first Purusha incarnation of Govinda, Lord Krishna, known as Mahavishnu, goes into Yoga Nidra, mystic sleep, and the innumerable universes are situated in potency in each and every hair holes of his transcendental body. Jagadandasa Romakupa, it is there. So Romakupa means like the hair, the pores of the body of Mahavishnu, right? So from there, the pores of the body of Mahavishnu, innumerable universes come out from his pores. So that's what is mentioned here. Okay, so as mentioned in the previous verse, Shrutena, or with reference to Vedic conclusions, the creation is made possible from the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly by manifestation of his particular energies. Without such Vedic reference, the creation appears to be a product of material nature. This conclusion comes from poor fund of knowledge. From Vedic reference, it is concluded that the origin of all energies, namely internal, external, and marginal, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as explained herein before, the illusory conclusion is that creation is made by the inert material nature. The Vedic conclusion is transcendental light, whereas non-Vedic conclusion is material darkness. The internal potency of the Supreme Lord is identical with the Supreme Lord, and the external potency is enlivened in contact with the internal potency. Right? So this is like the material nature, the external potency doesn't have any life. Right from the beginning, this body or anything that is made of matter is dead only. And then it gets enlivened by the contact of the internal potency or the marginal potency, for that matter. The living entity, when it comes in contact, it gets enlivened. So in case of our body, and in case of the universal creation, when Mahavishnu enters, he only activates this whole material nature. Otherwise, the material nature in itself is dead matter. How can it be activated? So the Lord enters, and then the whole thing becomes, everything is like activated in that way, right? So the part and parcels of the internal potency, which react in contact with the external potency, are called the marginal potency or living entities, right? So we are the marginal potencies. So we can actually in contact, like the part and parcel of the internal potency which react in contact with the external potency are called the marginal potency or the living entity. So we, the living entities, are part and parcel of the the internal potency, but then we react in contact with the external potency. So when we come in contact with the three modes of nature, we react in that contact. So we are called, such entities are called the living entities. Thus, the original creation is directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead or Parabrahman, and the secondary creation as the reactionary result of the original ingredients is made by Brahma. Thus, the activities of the whole universe are started. So, secondary creation, it's very clearly mentioned here, is done by Brahma, and that is called the Visarga. Sthitir Vaikunta Vijayah Poshanam Tad Anugrahah Manvantarani Saddharma Utaya Karma Vasanah. The right situation for the living entities is to obey the laws of the Lord and thus be in perfect peace of mind under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Manus and their laws are meant to give right direction in life. The impetus for activity is desire for fruitive work. So it is nicely mentioned that Atra Sarga, Visargascha, Sthanam, and then Poshanam. So Poshanam is there. So here the Poshanam aspect is mentioned here is like, one should follow the instructions given by the Lord, and then instructions given by great personalities like Manu. And such laws are meant for giving protection to us, right? So how can we be protected? So generally we think of some powerful entity or some powerful person will stand with a bulletproof coat and some gun in hand and things like that, and that's what can give us protection and things like that. But then here we see the real vaccination or real protection that we can have is the following the instructions of the Supreme Lord. That's what is going to offer us protection. Ashraya or this one, we can actually see that this is what actually offers protection to us. So in this way we can that is the Poshanam. And then Utaya, or the impetus for creative work and things like that in this world. The impetus for activity is desire for fruitive work. The Lord has created the fruits of the activity, and in terms of monetary benefit, in terms of name and fame, in terms of so many different varieties of benefits that a person may have. So that is called the impetus for the activity, the fruitive mentality. That is what is there. That's the impetus for the whole material world to go on, right? So that is also created. Purport: this material world is created, maintained for some time, and again annihilated by the will of the Lord. The ingredients of creation and the subordinate creator Brahma are first created by Lord Vishnu in his first and second incarnations. The first Purusha incarnation is Mahavishnu. The second Purusha incarnation is Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, from whom Brahma is created. The third Purusha avatar is Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, who lives as the super soul of everything in the universe and maintains the creation generated by Brahma. Shiva is one of the many sons of Brahma, and he annihilates the creation. Before the original creator of the universe, therefore the original creator of the universe is Vishnu, and he is also the maintainer of the created beings, and by his causeless mercy. As such, it is the duty of all conditioned souls to acknowledge the victory of the Lord and thus become pure devotees and live peacefully in this world where miseries and dangers are always in existence. Padam padam yad vipadam natesham, or dukkalayam ashashvatam, right? So this world is completely full of miseries. So one should acknowledge the victory of the Lord and thus become pure devotees, right? Et sangalabda nija virya vaibhavam tirtham muhus samsprishatam himanasham, right? This is very, very important. Virya vaibhavam. So the Lord's victory or the Lord's extra powerful activities or amazing activities must be discussed and glorified. And that is the way of attaining peace in life. And that's the way of overcoming the material miseries and dangers and things like that, right? So the conditioned souls who take this material creation as the place for satisfaction of the senses and thus are illusioned by external energy of Vishnu, remain again to be subjected to the laws of material nature, creation and destruction. Right? So this material nature is no creation, destruction, and this whole thing, the temporary nature is going on. And if we are part of the material nature, then we have to be constantly in anxiety, because everything that we possess will be marked and removed from our possession. So that's how the material nature is. It is temporary. Nothing can be permanent with us. All that we cherish now, all that we cherish as our assets, will be marked and plugged out from us, at one point in time, right? So better we try to get associated with those things which are permanent. The Lord's glory is the Lord's name and Lord's form, and Lord's shelter is permanent, and that needs to be sought after. So that's how we should develop a very great eagerness to attain Krishna, that I must somehow or other attain Krishna. And everything that I do in this life should be focused on that. And somehow or other, I should attain this permanent shelter and permanent position, of being under the safe shade of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So this is a very important aspect that we need to actually cultivate upon, right? So in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that beginning from the topmost planet of this universe down to the lowest planet of Patala Loka, all are destructible, and the conditioned souls may travel in space either by good or bad work or by modern spacecraft, but they are sure to die everywhere, although the duration of life is different in different planets is different. The only means to attain eternal life is to go back home, back to Godhead, where there is no more rebirth as in the material planets. The conditioned souls, being unaware of this very simple fact because of forgetting their relationship with the Lord of Vaikuntha, try to plan out a permanent life in the material world. This is our biggest problem. We try to plan out a permanent life in the material world, which is temporary. And why we will not be miserable? Definitely we will be miserable. It's a short plan for miserable life, right? So planning out a permanent life in the temporary material existence. So being illusioned by the external energy, they thus become engaged in various types of economic and religious development, forgetting that they are meant for going back home, back to Godhead. This forgetfulness is so strong due to the influence of Maya that the conditioned souls do not at all want to go back to Godhead. By sense enjoyment, they become victims of birth and death repeatedly, and thus spoil human lives, which are chance for going back to Vishnu. The directive scriptures made by the Manus in different ages and millenniums are called Saddharma, good guidance for the human beings, who should take advantage of all the revealed scriptures for their own interest. So, we may actually see this word has been used quite often, revealed scriptures. So it is something very important to understand. These scriptures are revealed, and these scriptures are not mastered by study. We are studying as a seva. We are actually going through them as a seva. And if Lord is pleased with our endeavor, the Lord will reveal these scriptures in our heart. Right? So it's not going to be like any other material, mundane text kind of a thing. It works with the aspect of pleasing the spiritual master, pleasing the Supreme Lord, and then getting the essence of these scriptures in our heart. So that's how it is, right? So like all the people should take advantage of the revealed scriptures for their own interest to make life's successful termination. The creation is not false, but it is temporary manifestation, just to give a chance for the conditioned souls to go back to Godhead. This is the purpose of the creation, just to give us a chance to go back to Godhead, right? So the desire to go back to Godhead and functions performed in that direction form the right path of work, right? So this is very important, that to maintain or to cultivate a desire to go back to the spiritual world is a very, very important thing. So one time, there was a preacher of Krishna consciousness, and then he was going out to convince people to take up to Krishna consciousness. And then every day he would come back and he would cry in front of the Lord saying, nobody is listening to your words, my Lord. Nobody is listening. Like everyone is averse to your this one. So nobody is listening to your words. So then the Lord would console him. Lord would speak to him, saying, Lord would console him, saying, no problem, like, no, you keep trying. No, this is, you're just engaged in my service. I am very pleased with your this one. So it's all okay. Like, no, you can continue in the same way. And then he goes and every day he tries, but then he gets dejected like anything. And he says, oh, nobody's listening to your words and things like that. Finally, the Lord, told, okay, fine. If nobody is listening to your, to the preaching of Krishna consciousness, it's not a problem. You come back to Godhead. No, you come back to my eternal abode. I'll take you back. So then this preacher told, no, I have so many duties here. I have to take care of this. I have to take care of that and things like that. So then you see, like, he himself did not have the desire to go back to, the spiritual world. What he will infuse faith in other people's heart, right? So that is a very important aspect, that before we explaining these concepts to others, we should have a decent practice of Krishna consciousness, wherein we absorb ourselves in the thoughts of the Lord. We absorb ourselves in our chanting process. We absorb ourselves in the process of reading and hearing the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. So in this way, like, we can actually invite the Lord in the heart, right? So kalena na ati dirghena bhagavan vishate hriti. So like so this is what is that Shanvatam, I forgot the shloka. It's a very nice shloka which talks about if we hear properly with proper intention and proper attention and with a service mood, throughout our chanting. So then, this thing can happen, that very soon, kalena na ati dirghena, very, very soon, Bhagavan Vishate Hridi, the Supreme Lord will take shelter or take his residence in our heart, right? So that's very important. So if we can do that thing, so then, everything is done very nicely. So we should develop this desire. When will the Lord come and reside in my heart? When will I become such a pure devotee that I'll be, always be absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord? When will I be able to hear my chanting properly and then, be absorbed in the chanting process? Little bit of time I'm giving for chanting, but then I'm not absorbed. My mind is going here and there, everywhere. So when will I become fully absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord? So we should develop such a desire and pray to the Lord, and in fact, petition the Lord again and again and praying for the mercy of the Lord. So that is what is mentioned. That is what it means. The desire to go back to Godhead and functions performed in that direction, form the right path of work. That is the right way of living a life, living a nice life of Krishna consciousness, right? So, okay, there is a comment in the chat box that, to share the previous lectures. Yeah, definitely. Like, I know it's there in my cards, but then I'm missing out, like, it's a little bit of time crunch is going on. I will definitely do that. Right? So, okay, so when such regulative path is accepted, the Lord gives all protection to his devotees by his causeless mercy, while the non-devotees risk their own activities to bind themselves in a chain of fruitive reactions. The word Saddharma is significant in this connection. Saddharma, or duty performed for going back to Godhead, and thus becoming his unalloyed devotee, is the only pious activity. All others may pretend to be pious, but actually they are not. We had seen the definition of pious and impious, the material definition of pious and impious, and the spiritual definition of pious and impious. And here we can see the spiritual definition. So rendering service to the Supreme Lord is the only pious activity, and rest everything is pretentious pious, and actually they are not pious, right? So it is for this reason only that the Lord advises in the Bhagavad Gita that one give up all so-called religious activities and completely engage in devotional service of the Lord to become free from all anxieties due to the dangerous life of material existence, right? Sarva dharman parityajya mamam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishami master. To work situated in Saddharma is the right direction of life. One's aim of life should be to go back home, back to Godhead, and not be subjected to repeated births and deaths in the material world by getting good or bad bodies for temporary existence. Herein lies the intelligence of human life, and one should desire the activities of life in that way. Right? So it's nice point. So now we will stop here, and a few more shlokas are going to be there for describing these, these 10 subject matters of Srimad Bhagavatam. Then after that, we will move on to the next topic, right? So tomorrow we'll again meet. So thank you all very much for joining every day and making this Bhagavatam like reading very lively. So your sincerity in coming, makes it more nice to like even for me to be committed to this whole thing, right? So thank you all very much for this sincere attempt. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.